All right. Well, we will get started here today. So, thank you, everybody, for joining us for the false promise of e-commerce. This breakout session was scheduled to be myself and Tim Porter. We had a few technical difficulties with Tim Porter from Zimbrick Automotive, so you'll just be here with me today. This is a wonderful picture of Tim Porter and myself. Tim is on the left leaning against the Honda Accord, and that's me with the Dodge Ram on the right. So a little bit about me. I am what you would call a car guy. I grew up in the car business, working at a dealership in Metro Detroit with my father. I've spent a little bit of time outside of the automotive industry in the United States Marine Corps, did a couple tours in Iraq, and came back and decided that the automotive industry was a lot more fun and a lot less dangerous. Throughout my career, I've worked my way up from selling cars to running dealerships, and I was chief operating officer of a 25-store dealership group. We had operations in 9 states, and I'm currently the executive vice president of MaxDigital. And I live here in Metro Detroit currently with my family. I've got a wife and 2 beautiful kids. Tim Porter, you'll see some quotes and some information that we're sharing from Tim Porter. He is the head of customer care and service at Zimbrick. He's been with them for 23 years, quite a long time, and got a great background in music as well, and he lives in Wisconsin. So if you hear me mention a couple things from Tim Porter today, this is Tim. So I want to start off with sharing some information with everybody here, really about online retailing, e-commerce when it comes to automotive. And prior to the outbreak, when we talked to dealers, we did a massive dealer survey across the country, and dealers predicted that online was going to double by 2025. And if you look at this 2020 survey we did at the very beginning of this year, they expected that about 15% of business would move to online throughout this year. By 2025, more than doubling that, and then gradually increasing over time. Now, I'm going to share some information from studies that we've done over the last year, as well as some studies from other reputable organizations that you've heard of before. But I think the one thing that we need to keep in mind now is that we're training customers to shop online more, and they're expecting a more streamlined experience and delivery of what we promise them online. Now, news from Automotive News, really that's coming from Vroom's filing, said that currently less than 1% of business really happens in that e-commerce space in automotive in 2019. We saw a lot more already due to some of the circumstances here in 2020, but it was a very small percentage of business that's actually happening or could be considered e-commerce. So really what we're seeing is a huge disconnect between what customers claim they want to do and what actually happens, their online purchasing behavior. So 43% of people said that they'd like to buy a car online. However, only 90% say, about 90% say that they actually went to the dealership, that they did not buy online. And some more information I'm going to share with us shortly is going to really speak to why that is. So when we look at a survey that was done earlier this year, we asked a question, and we surveyed, it was like just over 3,400 individuals across the country from the ages of 25 to 55, and very accurate representation, almost half and half, male, female as well. But we asked them, when you find a vehicle that you're interested in online, which of the following best describes what you would like to do next? And you can see it's very clear with the graph to the right what the customers would like to do next. So only 7.9% on the new side said they'd like to buy the vehicle online now, even less on the used side. Roughly the same said they'd want to speak to someone over the phone about the vehicle and then buy it online. And when we get into the vast majority of respondents here, they said that on the new side, even more on the used side, they would like to contact someone via phone, chat, text, or email about the vehicle, and then visit the dealership to see and test drive the vehicle before buying. Roughly the same numbers said that they'd like to check out the vehicle at the dealership, maybe not even speak to somebody, and test drive before buying the vehicle. And very few people said they'd like to check out the vehicle at the dealership without a test drive. So when we see that, while an overwhelming number of people are saying that they'd love to buy a car online right now, what what actually ends up happening next is that they do end up going to the dealership for various reasons. So 87% of used car shoppers are heading to the dealership. That was done on May 16th. So even after we had several months of COVID-19, some restrictions in place, some fear and uncertainty around that, the vast majority of people that were shopping for a used car still are heading to dealerships. And when we reference our friend Tim that I mentioned earlier, he said it's kind of like a bakery. You can have the pictures online of everything, but people want to come in because if it doesn't taste good, they don't want to buy it. And we can reference, tasting good to test driving the vehicle, sitting in the vehicle, seeing if they really like it. Now, what I've got in front of us now is surveys and research that we did, and we used the methodology of the late Harvard Business School professor Clayton Christensen to really take a look at what were the jobs to be done for consumers when they were shopping for a vehicle online. So the first job that needed to be done was they needed to find the car that best met their needs at a fair price. And most of that is happening on the web first. They're doing a lot of online research through third-party sites such as Car Gurus, Cars.com, Auto Trader, and also some of the large national brands like CarMax and Carvana. They're looking at as upper funnel research sites. Now, they're also doing this on the lower funnel with dealer sites like CarMax and Carvana. They've actually been considered by consumers an upper funnel site and a lower funnel site because of their vast array of inventory located across the country and available for purchase. Now, after that first job of finding the car that best meets their needs is done, there's a switch moment that happens. That job is now complete and they move to another job that needs to be done, which this job is to check out the car and decide if they'd like to buy that vehicle actually. So that typically is happening in a dealership and almost exclusively needs to happen at a dealership unless the vehicle is being delivered to the consumer's house or work or wherever that may be. But the next job is I need to check out this vehicle and decide if I'd like to buy it. Now, once they've made that decision that they do like that vehicle and they do want to buy it, the next job that needs to be done is they want to buy the car quickly, painlessly, and get a fair deal. Now, that can happen online, that can happen in the store. Historically, that has happened in the store, but there's three key jobs that need to be done throughout the process through our research, and those are the three that are displayed on the screen right now. So while a lot of customers, in fact, the vast majority of customers do start online, over half of used car shoppers are heading to the dealership and want their questions answered first. So the online to in-store process, as most of us know right now, is not perfect. And when we surveyed dealers at the end of last year, 90% of them said their sales process needed to change to work more seamlessly with digital retailing. You look at the reviews that happen on dealership websites, and you see some of the challenging situations that happen are they go through an experience online, they estimate a payment, they find a vehicle that they like, only to show up at the dealership and find that all of the work that they've done wasn't really tracked anywhere. The salesperson that they met with didn't have insight into what vehicles they'd looked at, what their payment criteria was, maybe if they looked at F&I products, what they were interested in. They pretty much started over from scratch once they arrived at the dealership. So they knew that we needed to really change things if we wanted to create a better experience for our customers. And when we look at what customers want to know when they're at the dealership, there's a few things here. There's really 5 things here. And that is, does this car meet my online expectations? So when I've looked at the pictures of this vehicle online, were those pictures doctored or photoshopped at all? Did they clearly display any imperfections that maybe, were on that vehicle? And there's certain things that you can't tell from a photo, like does my car seat fit in the back of this vehicle, or my golf clubs, do they fit into the trunk? So if it looks like it does online, customers want to actually see that in person and ensure that it meets their expectations. And a really important piece is number 2 here. How does it feel to drive? This is the largest purchase or the second largest purchase that most people make in their life. and they want to know, how does this vehicle feel to drive? If I'm going to be driving it regularly, every day for most people, am I comfortable in this vehicle? Does it fit all my needs that way? Does it have all of the equipment that I want? One thing that Max Digital specializes in that we focus on heavily here is vehicle merchandising and highlighting the packages, options, and equipment that are on vehicles. And oftentimes, dealerships tend to miss certain key features and equipment in the vehicle description. They don't get decoded automatically. And if someone doesn't check a box in a system, they can be missed. So customers have learned over time that they need to inspect this themselves. They need to make sure that it has Bluetooth or a backup camera or heated and cooled seats. There's certain things, especially in certain markets, that are incredibly important to different consumers. Number 4 is they want to test drive it. Does this car work for me? I can, remember a recent experience I had when I purchased an Expedition, and I wanted to make sure that it fit in my garage. I couldn't do that unless I actually went to the dealership, hopped in that vehicle, drove it to my house, and saw, did it actually fit in my garage? And that's a real concern for a lot of people, whether it's a parking spot in a building, if they live in an apartment or a condo, or it's a garage at their home. They want to make sure that their vehicle actually fits in there, that the gear that maybe they carry regularly fits in there. So that's something that is necessary to be done. And the last thing here is, am I excited about owning this car? Most people finance vehicles. The average car payment tends to creep up every year for consumers here on the new and the used side. So am I excited about actually owning this vehicle? Those are the 5 things that a consumer wants to know when they're coming to your dealership. So what can we do here from a dealership perspective to really help keep consumers engaged on our website, engaged in the process with us versus shopping at other dealerships? And one thing that we found that's important to consumers was they want a large variety of vehicles. So we want to provide the largest possible view for your team. Typically, that's your BDC or your sales team. And if you're part of a dealership group, one thing that you can take advantage of is providing a view of all of your inventory at all of your stores. And I was recently talking to the digital marketing director of a 23-store dealership group in New York, and he said that over 40% of their sales come from sister stores, so to speak. So of the 23 stores, 40% plus of their sales come from selling inventory from other dealerships, not their own. So if you aren't providing your staff with the largest possible view, that's one thing that you can definitely do to make sure that you're set up for success there. So if they can see all the inventory and they can answer more questions, you're much more likely to find a match at your group than having the consumer go elsewhere to look for a vehicle. So with your staff, and with your customer, you want to make it easier, faster, and make sure that they're nicer. That's just a good start with the process. And one thing to keep in mind, and I look at websites across the country at dealerships almost daily, and one thing that is in common is that a website wasn't designed necessarily to help your BDC, and in some cases, it wasn't designed to help your customer either. There's a lot of gates that come up that ask them for information before providing them with information, specifically with the trade-in. And if you can do whatever's necessary to equip your team to answer these questions for the consumer, you're a lot more likely to keep them engaged and happy with the experience. Because we have to keep in mind, buying a car should be fun. This is why I love the car business. This is something that, as a young man working with my dad at a dealership, it was always fun, and he tried to make it fun for folks. I learned to want to make the experience fun for folks as well. It shouldn't be a long, painful process full of surprises and anxiety. However, for the most part, it is for people still. And that's something that we can definitely change, and it's within our control. So what I've got on the screen here is an example of one of our tools called MaxBDC, and it was a tool designed to do exactly that. This is a tool that Tim Porter from Zimbrick uses with his team on a regular basis. And now he said once they've got to using this for the last 6 months or so, it's something that they can't live without, that he'd have a hard time taking away from them, because it allows them to quickly and easily find any vehicle across the group and answer questions about that vehicle. It helps build value in the uniqueness of that vehicle as well. If a customer's looking for a crossover that has heated seats, in the search bar, you can type crossover heated seats, and it'll pull up every crossover that has heated seats in your entire inventory. It'll also help you highlight the unique packages, options, equipment on that vehicle, and how much that cost at MSRP to help build value and hold gross profit at the dealership as well. So this is the type of education that a consumer is looking for. If it's not easy to find on the dealership website, they're looking for a trusted resource at the dealership. That's why they're going to engage via email, chat, text, a phone call. They're looking for someone that can answer the questions and help them, because it's probably not that easy to find in the web experience itself. So how do you make it better? There's a good start here, and it's make sure that your people are good at engaging with the customer, that they're good conversationalists, that they actually want to help people, something that they're naturally wired to do, and that they care about people and they care about their needs, they care about their time, and they're not looking at it as just, I need to hit my numbers in terms of setting appointments and getting those appointments to show up, but they genuinely want to help people. That's something that tends to be missing from the process right now when we talk to consumers. Now, most people visiting dealerships are comfortable right now. And I think with all the news that we hear right now, we think people don't want to go anywhere, and they especially don't want to go to a dealership. But when we surveyed consumers in the middle of our current crisis here, despite the fears that they had, 85% of consumers said that they're more comfortable or that they are comfortable, provided that enhanced safety precautions are taken. So when we look at the responses below, the question that we asked was, given current health and safety concerns, are you willing to purchase a vehicle through the traditional process in a dealership? And 53% said they're comfortable purchasing it with the traditional process, no caveats. Another 32% said they're not comfortable, but they're willing to purchase via the traditional process if there were enhanced safety precautions like masks, gloves, sanitizing shields, things like that. And this was in May. This was still very early in the process. 9% said no, but they're willing to complete the purchase on their phone while at the dealership and will ask for help as needed via social distancing. Only 4% said that they would return home to purchase the vehicle after it had been delivered. And 3% said they'd return home to purchase the vehicle and pick up at the dealership. So we can see the overwhelming amount of people are still comfortable going to a dealership to purchase a vehicle, even given the current risks and health and safety concerns. Another interesting fact that came out of our survey was we asked consumers, taking into account social distancing, coronavirus safety precautions, how confident are you purchasing a vehicle from? And we gave them an option: an online vendor like Carvana, a local car dealership, or a national chain like CarMax. And you can see the responses below where when we looked at confident or very confident, local car dealerships still won out. 63% of people were confident or very confident purchasing from a local car dealership as opposed to a national chain like Carvana or CarMax. Even the online retailers. So very interesting to see what our assumptions are and what we may think consumers believe. And then when we ask them, in a very large format like this, what they would be comfortable doing, these are what their responses were. Now, here's another interesting piece. I think, being in the technology and the software industry, supporting the automotive space, we like to feel that the technology and the online tools are the most important part of this process when it comes to purchasing a vehicle online. However, when we talk to dealers and we look at the process overall, 21% said the online tools and experience were the most important part of this, which is really the smallest piece of all of the sections that we broke it down. The thing that was most important was promotion and marketing. And this is something that folks like Carvana and Vroom and CarMax recently have done an excellent job at, is promoting that there's an option to buy a vehicle online and have it delivered to your house. And as a dealership, if you aren't focusing on this piece first, the promotion and marketing of what you can actually do now, what your capabilities are, the rest of this doesn't matter much, because you won't have the same level of engagement that your competition does in that space. Now, we look at the transition from online to in-store. Almost a quarter of the process here, the importance of this was the transition from online to in-store. And I mentioned this earlier a few minutes ago when we were talking about the frustration of consumers when they do a lot of the process online, when they engage with a payment calculator or even a real approval, a bank approval. When they do a lot of the process online, they select their ancillary products, they get an estimate for their trade, only to show up to the dealership to engage with somebody who maybe they've never spoken to yet, and they have no idea what they've already completed or what vehicles they were looking at or what was important to them. This is a really big breakdown in the process currently, and something that dealers are working very hard to fix, I think, from everything that we've learned right now. And the last piece here is a sales processes for vehicles selected online, to really make sure that that's fine-tuned, as well as kind of the final piece of what matters most in digital retailing right now. So your focus should be to answer every question that the customer has, to make that transition seamless, and to keep everyone safe in the store. Lead, help, and be resourceful with what you have. So there's a variety of tools being used right now, from the online retailing tools to what's being used, to make people feel comfortable with coming into the dealership from a health and safety perspective. But there's really three things to focus on. And when it's answering every question, and I think a lot of this is managing expectations with the customer as well. So not just their questions about the vehicle, but their questions about what the process is going to look like, how long they're likely to be in the store, really to put their mind at ease, make that transition seamlessly. So ensure that the person that is going to handle the transaction in the store understand what has been done and what questions have been asked prior to that. And then again, most importantly, keep everyone safe in the store. So social distancing and all of the things that are paramount right now under the current circumstances. And this is an overview of really our system, MaxBDC, again, that I'm just highlighting here just to let you know that it's one customer journey, and there needs to be seamless handoffs. And whether it's on our tool, whether it's on another tool, it needs to be one seamless process. And the more systems that are involved that don't communicate, the more likely there is for speed bumps or bumps in the road that can derail the process a little bit. So the important piece here is to make sure that it's a seamless process from the time that a customer engages with your website and your staff, likely in the BDC, all the way through showing up in the dealership, taking delivery of that vehicle, appraising the trade, and everything that goes hand in hand with that. And I've come up with 4 C's when it comes to engaging with your customer and keeping in mind what's important to them. Is the first one is calm. You have to remember that people in general are anxious when it comes to making a large purchase. They're especially anxious right now under the current circumstances. So you need to help keep them calm. Your staff needs to be calm as well, and be able to answer a few extra questions that maybe they have about your process, your precautions, things like that. The next thing is certainty. So what's going to happen? I think you should have a map of your process of how things go, everything from the trade process through F&I, delivery, paperwork, if that's happening at your store, if that's happening in their home. And I think especially if it's happening at someone's home, one thing that we have to keep in mind is that a stranger is coming to their house. If you are doing remote delivery, a stranger is coming to that consumer's house. That's something that most people are not comfortable with. So you really need to explain how that process works, what that person's name is, give them a description of what they look like. Maybe part of the email signature has a picture of whoever the staff is that's going to be there. But you really need to make sure that you manage expectations well here. Convenience is important right now. Convenience has been an ever increasingly important piece of transacting with anybody in any industry right now. But especially right now in the automotive industry, convenience is important, and it has to be convenient on their terms. So maybe that may mean driving a vehicle to their house. Maybe that means just making sure that the vehicle is pulled up and ready. And this sounds like common sense, but in a lot of the research that we've done talking to consumers, they'd show up for a test drive for a vehicle. The vehicle wasn't ready. It wasn't pulled up. It wasn't running. It needed gas. And it took twice as long for them to do something simple that maybe they did on their lunch break or during one of the few times they left their house during the last few months. So convenience has to be important on the customer's terms. And lastly, connection. People buy from people, and people are looking for a friend. They're looking for a trusted advisor. So try to make a connection. It's not just a transactional relationship. Your folks in the BDC shouldn't be just concerned about setting an appointment with that consumer and getting them into the dealership. They should really be a trusted advisor and a friend, and make a connection with your customers if you want to set yourself up for success and differentiate yourself from the competition. Next thing is to clarify the order as early as possible. Check and double check to make sure that the trade-in figures are right, that the monthly payment calculations are correct, and that any F&I, protection options are clarified as well from a pricing perspective prior to delivery, because no one wants surprises. This is another thing that we've seen come up quite a bit through our research, is that a trade-in number was given only to be different at the time of delivery. Monthly payment calculations were done only to be dramatically different in some cases at delivery because of an estimation versus a real approval. And that F&I products were guesstimated or quoted only to be dramatically different at the time of delivery. All of these things led to a poor customer experience and things that we're trying to avoid right now, and that we need to improve on if we want to continue to move more of the transaction online. So let your customers understand where they stand in real time. We need to communicate back and forth with the customers as they change their mind. One of the things that we designed into our system, MaxBDC, was as a customer is shopping for different vehicles, it communicates with your team. If maybe they spoke on the phone or via chat originally on one vehicle, if they've added 2 or 3 vehicles to their shopping cart, so to speak, it lets that associate know at your dealership that they're looking at other vehicles, and that gives them an opportunity to engage with them and answer questions on different vehicles that they may be looking at that point in the process. Other part of consumer experience here is obviously focusing on your staff in general and what they need to be successful here. And in our research with dealerships, 51% of the millennial respondents said that adding technology to the process would increase profits. And 7% said a lack of training is the primary reason for turnover in the dealership. So clearly a good customer experience starts with great employees, great team members that really want to do a great job. They need the right tools and the right training to be successful. So if they don't have that, if that's clearly a gap that you have, this is an area to visit. And make it easy for your team to be consistently awesome. I think the consistency it should be accentuated as much as the awesome is here, as they need to be consistently awesome. There needs to be a process. There needs to be training around that in order to ensure that happens. That's it for my section here. I'll open it up to any questions that anybody has from here.